Chapter 49 The Claw of the Ice Empress. I'll be waiting for you to kowtow and admit that you were wrong. These words struck Dalu like a hammer blow and left him stunned. His already ice-cold countenance turned even paler as the blood seemed to drain out of his face. I'll be waiting for you to kowtow and admit that you were wrong. These words struck Dalu like a hammer blow and left him stunned. His already ice-cold countenance turned even paler as the blood seemed to drain out of his face. He remembered now that just before they entered the large beast dueling arena, Huo Yuao had specifically emphasized that their bet would be settled today. However, never in his wildest dreams would Dalu have expected Huo Yuao to actually pass the advancement test with such an overbearing method. As if that wasn't enough, Huo Yuao had also revealed his dual 100,000-year soul rings. No matter how much he tried to deny it, the facts were right in front of him. Furthermore, the presence of the 100 or so students from the two classes along with the presence of teacher Wang Yan made it difficult for him to renege on his bet. For a moment, Dalu felt as though there was a mouthful of air stuck in his chest. His throat tasted sweet, and with a wah, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He was simply too competitive. However, the more competitive one was, the harder it would be for one to bear losses or humiliation. Dalu let out an astonished cry and hurriedly rushed over to support him, only to be roughly shoved aside by Dalu. Traces of blood had already appeared in his eyes as he glared fiercely at Huo Yuao, who had already left alongside Douluo. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees and shouted out loud, "I was wrong." As he said this, he fiercely smashed his head into the ground. Then, he stood up and ran away. Huo Yuao paused his footsteps when he heard Dahuoden's loud voice. His gaze was somewhat dazed, but his nose ached. "Mom, did you hear that?" Dahuoden admitted he was wrong. He's the son of that man and that woman. And this is just the beginning. I will definitely make them pay for the 11 years they made you suffer. Huo Yuao didn't turn back to look at Dahuoden. After pausing for a brief moment, he strode forward and continued following Douluo to meet with Gong Chenglong. Dahuoden crawled to his feet and ran away immediately while Douluo and Kuyaji hurriedly chased after him. Huo Yuao's target was only Dahuoden, so naturally Wang Dong and Xia Xiao wouldn't go over to trouble the two girls. This time, not only had they won, but they had done so by using an inconceivable method that had astonished the entire audience. Douluo walked over to Gong Chenglong with Huo Yuao in tow. "Elder Gong, I've brought the person over. Look." Before he could finish his sentence, Gong Chenglong let out a cold snort. Suddenly, his body flashed and he sent a palm flying straight towards Huo Yuao's head. Instinctively, Huo Yuao's body flashed as he moved backwards using the ghost shadow perplexing track. However, the enormous attractive force that suddenly came from Gong Chenglong's fan-like palm forcibly halted his movement, causing his body to stumble forward as his footsteps became chaotic. Furthermore, a terrifying wave of heat appeared within the force of attraction, causing water-like ripples to instantly form in the air around Huo Yuao's body. Douluo didn't stop him since he knew that Gong Chenglong was only trying to test Huo Yuao. In reality, he was extremely curious too, and if it wasn't for the situation occurring in front of him, he would have verified Huo Yuao's abilities himself. A milky white light suddenly flashed across Huo Yuao's eyes as he forcefully stood his ground with a stamp. A spotless white soul ring instantly rose from his feet. Since he couldn't evade Gong Chenglong's blow, his only option was to take it on forcefully. As if he was supporting the heavens, he moved his palms to block Gong Chenglong's palm, even though it was currently the middle of the day and there was still ample sunlight. When Huo Yuao raised his hands to block Gong Chenglong's palm, the nearby teachers could clearly see that his palms were flickering with a dazzling light almost as if he was wearing a pair of diamond gloves. At the same time, all of them suddenly felt an intense chill spread through them. The arrival of this chilliness was not only sudden but also ferocious. It was so powerful that it seemed to have the ability to pierce into one's bones. This dense cold aura even caused someone of Douluo's cultivation to instinctively shiver. The three palms connected and Gong Chenglong's right palm suddenly turned fiery red as if it was a burning hot piece of coal. A chi-chi sound rang out the instant he collided with Huo Yuao's palms. Large billowing waves of white mist burst forth from the point where the two collided, so much so that their entire bodies were hidden within the mist. The clash caused Huo Yuao to retreat a few steps before falling onto the ground with a thump. Although his butt had landed on the ground and he had a somewhat astonished expression on his face, his appearance clearly showed that he hadn't suffered any injuries. Gong Chenglong's astonished face was clearly seen once the white mist was dispersed. "What a good brat," he said. "You possess the ultimate ice attribute, which allowed your martial soul to suppress this old man's. What bothers me, however, is how a one-ring soul master like you possesses soul power comparable to that of a ranked 20 soul grandmaster. Also, where's the 100,000-year soul ring you were supposed to have?" No one saw this, but despite dispersing rapidly, an icy mist still lingered about the right hand he hid behind his back. Huo Yuao stood up. He naturally understood that this elder was only trying to test his cultivation. He replied respectfully, "Teacher, I don't have a 100,000-year soul ring. That was only a special soul skill of mine. As for my soul power being above rank 20, that is because I have two martial souls. My first martial soul has two soul rings. Earlier, I sensed that you had a fire attribute martial soul, and since it just so happens that my second martial soul is an ice attributed one, I decided to use it in the hope that I'd be able to retaliate better." Douluo was already widening his eyes when Huo Yuao revealed his ice-type martial soul, especially after he saw that singular white soul ring appear. Upon also hearing Huo Yuao personally say that he had twin martial souls, he felt everything in front of him go black. Depression took him over and he nearly spat out blood like Dahuoden. Even if Huo Yuao's class wanted both him and Xia Xiao that possessed twin martial souls, in reality, they were the only ones in the entire outer courtyard who had twin martial souls. People with twin martial souls were absolutely gifted and talented existences. Even in the extremely harsh Shrek Academy, all the previous students with dual martial souls had become core disciples and entered the inner courtyard. The thing that depressed Douluo the most was the fact that he thought that Huo Yuao had wasted his twin martial souls. As a student of Shrek Academy, a 10-year soul ring was already a disgrace, and Huo Yuao had a 10-year soul ring on not one but both of his martial souls. Speaking of which, hadn't he mentioned that the 100,000-year soul ring he had revealed earlier was a skill? The curiosity in his heart wasn't one bit less than Gong Chenglong's. Gong Chenglong nodded seriously. "Very good. It's a very powerful skill. Both its power and attribute have reached the pinnacle. If I'm not mistaken, you definitely have a soul bone within you. Moreover, it's a power-type soul bone. There is no other way for you to have been able to burst out with so much power otherwise." Earlier, he had been extremely furious towards the person who'd sent his soul beasts into a mess. It was due to this anger that he had been prepared to disciple Huo Yuao using that palm attack of his. After sensing Huo Yuao's soul power, the strength contained within his palm should have easily sent him flying according to common sense. At the very least, he should have tumbled head over heels across the ground. However, Huo Yuao had only retreated a few steps backwards and landed on his butt, as if nothing serious had occurred to him. This wasn't just a might of soul power, but a manifestation of his physical strength. Gong Chenglong couldn't help but feel astonished by this. After all, it had to be known that he was one of the top 10 experts in Shrek Academy as cultivation rank went. Huo Yuao said, "Yes, thanks to a fortunate encounter, I obtained a torso bone." Douluo felt like he was going to go blind. Everything in front of him was going dark again. A torso bone? They'd only had a 1-month holiday, but he went and got himself a torso bone. Since when were torso bones this inexpensive? Didn't he say that he was an orphan? The Soul Tool Department, it must have been them. The Soul Tool Department actually invested so much in him. Wait, Gong Chenglong praised the skill that came from that 10-year soul ring of his. Douluo couldn't hold in his curiosity anymore. Huo Yuao, just what in the world happened to you? Just what soul skill did you use earlier to make all the soul beasts within the beast dueling arena go limp from fright? Don't you know how hard it is to train these soul beasts? Either you tell us what happened or you'll have to compensate us for our loss. Gong Chenglong's face sank. "Little do, what are you doing? He's just a kid and an outstanding student on top of that. You're called Huo Yuao, right? Tell me, this old man is also very curious about you. In such a situation, Huo Yuao naturally wouldn't try to conceal anything. He replied obediently, "My first martial soul is my spirit eyes, and its second soul ring gives me a skill called imitation. This imitation skill can let me change the shape of my body to imitate various things, and can fake the age of my soul rings as well. Earlier, I made both my soul rings imitate the shape and aura of 100,000-year soul rings. However, I wasn't able to fully imitate their auras due to my lacking cultivation. Otherwise, its effects would have been even better." He wasn't trying to boast. He had been trying to imitate the aura of the Ice Empress, and if a 400,000-year-old soul beast had suddenly appeared in front of a group of soul beasts who had far inferior cultivations, just the pressure from its aura would have been enough to flatten them all. After hearing Huo Yuao's explanation, Douluo and Gong Chenglong suddenly understood everything. Gong Chenglong couldn't help but reveal a strange light in his eyes. Good. This is an interesting soul skill. This imitation is really good. good. If you had this skill in the Great Stardo Forest, you would have been able to avoid a large number of conflicts. This would then be extremely useful when you're hunting soul beasts. This old man's called Gong Chenglong, also known as the Beast King. I have another question for you. What's your second martial soul? I know that it's advisable for you twin-souled soul masters to keep your second martial a secret, and so this old man won't expect you to reveal your secret for free. How about this? I'll promise to do everything in my power to help you obtain a soul ring in the future if you're willing to tell me about your second martial soul. Do we have a deal? Huo Yuao was overjoyed. A spiritual type soul beast was simply too rare, and this teacher was evidently in charge of the great beast dueling arena. His assistance would undoubtedly save Huo Yuao a lot of time and effort. He nodded hurriedly and replied respectfully, Teacher Gong, I'm willing to tell you about my second martial soul. Douluo and the other teachers by the side all had curious expressions on their faces, but Huo Yuao clearly wasn't planning to satisfy their curious minds. A golden light flickered through his eyes as he immediately activated his spiritual detection. A three-dimensional image of the surrounding 100 meters immediately appeared in Gong Chenglong's brain, and then image quickly focused on Huo Yuao's back. It entered his shirt, and the tattoo on his back appeared fully in Gong Chenglong's mind. This was also Gong Chenglong's first time experiencing the wondrous spiritual detection, and he couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. What a good skill. Even among the world of twin-souled soul masters, your combination of martial souls is absolutely at the peak. Very good, very good. So, your second martial soul is that thing. It's no wonder your ice attribute is at such an ultimate level. The Academy's truly picked up a treasure this time. Don't worry, this old man will keep the secret for you. I'd never thought that I could see a martial soul like this within my lifetime. The more Gong Chenglong spoke about it, the more curious Du Weilin became. However, the second martial soul of any twin-souled soul master was an extremely important secret. They wouldn't easily divulge it unless it was absolutely necessary. Due to Xia Xiao's Nina Phoenix worshipping flute being a tool soul, it was too easy for it to be exposed. Thus, she didn't bother concealing it. However, Huo Yuao's second martial soul clearly wasn't easily distinguishable. However, Gong Chenglong had said that it was an ultimate martial soul. Thus, it absolutely wasn't bad at all. Furthermore, another question had popped up in Du Weilin's mind. Huo Yuao's second soul skill was his imitation. Then, was the soul ring he'd unleashed from his ice-type martial soul a real one? Was the soul skill even Gong Chenglong praised a mere 10-year soul skill? Even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't believe it. Huo Yuao said obediently, Teacher Gong, Director Du, if there's nothing more to say, I'll be going back first. Gong Chenglong nodded. You can go back. If you have any spare time in the future, you can come over here and play for a bit. However, I'm forbidding you from imitating a 100,000-year soul ring here. Otherwise, I'm going to make you go and clean up the beast cages. Huo Yuao smiled mischievously and ran off. Du Weilin didn't stop him. What good would stopping him do? He was already a core disciple of the Soul Tool department. The current Director Du only felt everything in front of his eyes going black. Even in his wildest dreams, he'd never thought that he'd let the Soul Tool department pick up such a good deal. Furthermore, this was something that he and the dean had forsaken. In reality, Du Weilin couldn't really be blamed. Huo Yuao's previous performances had simply been nothing spectacular. However, his trip to the extreme north had caused his strength to experience a qualitative leap. After bidding farewell to Gong Chenglong, Du Weilin left hurriedly. The advancement test of the second-year students hadn't gone smoothly, and he had to go back and rearrange it. At the same time, he had to report the day's events to Yan Xiaosh. After Huo Yuao walked out of the Great Beast dueling arena, he was instantly surrounded by a large number of students. Boss Huo, explain yourself clearly. Just what in the world happened with that 100,000-year soul ring of yours? Lan Susu called out, standing by the side. Yeah. Boss Huo, you have to compensate me for my trousers. I almost pissed myself because of you. Zhou Siken stood by the side, fanning the flames. Immediately, he caused his fellow students to erupt into laughter. Then you didn't piss in the end, right? If you take a piss in front of everyone here, I'll pay you back. Huo Yuao said unhappily. Zhou Siken was immediately forced to shut up. Huo Yuao spoke in a loud voice. I'm sure that everyone can guess that those 100,000-year soul rings of mine were definitely fake. I can only say that it's a new soul skill I've obtained that doesn't have any other practical uses. I won't talk about any further details. Let me keep a few secrets. The advancement test had just started and wouldn't just end due to such a matter. Just as Huo Yuao and the other students were returning to their classes in a lively manner, Dai Huobin stood in a shadowy corner not far away from them. As he wiped away the bloodstains at the corners of his mouth, a cruel light appeared in his eyes. Huobin, are you okay? Dalu asked worriedly. Dai Huobin replied coldly, help me request each of you for a leave of absence. I'm going out for a bit. What are you going to do? Mind your own business, Dai Huobin said coldly. With that, he turned away and left. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.